The last major LA fire had devastating consequences, destroying countless homes and taking thousands of animal and plant lives. In just one night, fierce flames reduced an inhabited area to ashes, leaving many with nothing. The fire's origin remains unknown, but its destructive power is undeniable. Fires pose a severe threat to farms, wiping out thousands of animals, wetlands, and crops. A small spark can cause flames to spread alarmingly fast, overwhelming human efforts and leaving lasting environmental and economic impacts. The fire began with a mirror in an air filter behind IRO, which contained sawdust and pellets. Flames quickly engulfed the wooden structures, rapidly destroying them. The devastation was overwhelming. "11 trucks, 8 water tankers, 3 side trucks, and 6 commanders, totaling about 60 personnel, responded to the fire. The firefighting team remained on scene for a total of 8 hours. A major loss occurred on a New Brunswick farm, where about 200 birds and chickens perished in a barn fire. For the farm owner, it was a complete loss. When the fire was discovered, it was too late to salvage anything. None of the farm animals survived the blaze. Unable to save the barn and animals, firefighters focused on protecting a nearby house from the heat and flames. Farmers often attend fire safety training sessions. Farm owners create specific fire prevention plans tailored to their needs, listing actions like emergency livestock evacuation procedures. These plans are regularly reviewed with family and staff to ensure safety remains top priority. The plan also includes a farm map and list of emergency contacts. The farm map shows key areas like chemical storage, barns, fuel tanks, and water sources for firefighters. Despite thorough fire prevention plans, hundreds of farm fires occur yearly, causing major damage. About 100,000 chickens died in a massive fire at an egg farm in Canikia, owned by a top national producer. It was the largest in a decade of fires that killed millions of chickens nationwide. Firefighters arrived to find a 30,000 square meter chicken house ablaze. Over 100 firefighters from various departments responded to the scene. Chicken houses are typically built with light materials like wood, plastic, and foam insulation. These materials are highly flammable, spreading fire faster than concrete and steel used in cattle barns. Chicken houses are often densely packed, with thousands of birds in a small area. Fish meal and dry feed are highly flammable organic materials. When a fire breaks out, fish meal ignites quickly, generating intense heat that accelerates flame spread. A major fire struck Upperburn, causing extensive damage to a poultry farm. The blaze destroyed the facility, killing 81,000 chickens and causing millions in equipment and infrastructure losses. The fire was visible from miles away. It took over 4 hours to contain due to lack of a fire suppression system, forcing firefighters to rely on water trucks. More than 15 fire crews from neighboring areas responded to the scene. Currently, fish meal continues to smolder at the site. Firefighters and farm workers are working to assess and repair the damage. All poultry perished in a massive fire on a farm in southern Essex. The fire chief said about 280,000 to 300,000 dogs were in the building. The building had two 40,000L water tanks, but this wasn't enough to stop the fire. Firefighters tapped a hydrant at Branco Wine Co., laying 1,800 meters of hose between sites. This system supplied water for an engine and one of the 3 side trucks. 8 tankers brought about 350,000 liters of water from Branco to the farm. It took roughly 4 hours to put out the fire. The building was lost, but firefighters stopped it from spreading to a nearby dog shelter. Despite the shock, farm owners must rebuild and improve all aspects of operations. The first step is to clear the fire debris. If any crops survive, farmers either salvage them or quickly transport them to nearby storage facilities. The risk may persist even after firefighters leave the scene. Contaminated water and hazardous surroundings are common challenges during cleanup. After dealing with fire damage, farmers begin repairing and rebuilding their farms. Farming is one of the most dangerous occupations in the United States. The National Safety Council reports 700+ deaths and 120,000 injuries yearly from farm accidents. A combine harvester caught fire due to extreme heat. Firefighters extinguished the blaze, but the engine and rear were severely damaged. Farm machinery operates non-stop for days across vast areas, keeping engines at high temps for extended periods. When water and sparks meet these hotspots, the fire risk increases dramatically. These machines also have high-pressure fuel systems, hydraulic oil lines, and plastic fuel tanks. Once these components melt, fire can spread rapidly. Firefighters used foam nozzles, fire hoses, and other farm gear to contain the blaze. Farmers and firefighters had the situation under control before winter. However, they needed to monitor the site for 2 more hours to ensure no fire risk remained. Wildfires can consume pastures and crops, devastating farm operations. Fires spread quickly, leaving little time to escape and destroy crops in their path. Suffered serious injuries or deaths. The largest wildfire in Texas history occurred in the Panhandle in February 2018, burning thousands of cattle and over 1 million acres. The disaster devastated the region that produced the most cattle in the country. Agricultural losses resulted in a total product value reduction of $219.8 million. A Texas farm fire burned 8,000 cattle. Despite unexpected efforts to fight the fire, the farm owner lost everything overnight. In typical farm fires, farmers usually rely on fire departments to handle the situation. In grassland fires around farms, flames can spread rapidly and become uncontrollable in a short time. In these cases, farmers often use helicopters to collect water from nearby sources and dump it on burning fields. This method effectively prevents fire from spreading to nearby areas, protecting crops and property. In 2023, the U.S. faced 28 climate disasters, the most in a year, each costing over $1 billion in damages. So how do farmers in marginal lands cope? Typically, Florida farmers harvest over half of the state's corn crop each year. Much of the 846,000 tons harvested is processed into corn syrup across the country. In Texas, farmers grow vast cotton fields, the state's largest crop, accounting for 40% of U.S. production. These fields produce 3.10 million bales of cotton, each weighing 500 pounds. Nebraska is known for beef production. In 2022 alone, farmers here produced about 1.8 million head of cattle. Much of it is used to feed livestock and produce biofuels. Many farms have been operating for over 50 years, like this 59-year-old potato farm in Montana, which produces certified seed potatoes for farmers in the Pacific Northwest. These seeds grow into russet potatoes that end up on your dinner table or become the crispy fries you enjoy at McDonald's. Every year, miles of these potatoes are harvested, stored, and shipped to processing plants. But the idyllic farm life is often disrupted by unexpected forces of nature. Rain, extreme heat, floods, hurricanes, and storms have ravaged farms, leaving fields and crops in ruins. In Montana alone, wildfires consumed over 9,000 acres of private land. In Texas and Kansas, extreme heat and drought caused over $14.5 million in crop losses, especially affecting cut flowers, dairy, and forage crops. Heavy rains also claimed over 490 lives. This was especially true in New England, where Vermont and Connecticut saw record-breaking heat. Hurricane Ian caused $1.5 billion in crop damage in Florida, including $304 million in citrus losses. In Idaho and Montana, COVID-19 disrupted the fruit supply chain, closing hotels and homes. Demand for fruit began to decline. Montana's largest fruit farm had to dump 1.4 million rows of unused fruit, a total loss. Montana's largest fruit farm had to dump 1.4 million rows of unused fruit, a total loss. Only 1% of the population. Across the region, this loss amounted to $8 million, as over 1.5 million potato rows went unused. Many farmers in drought-prone areas like Texas and Kansas now use drought-resistant crops and improved soil management. They install efficient irrigation, use moisture sensors, and collect rainwater to conserve water in dry periods. Some also adopt crop varieties that can withstand low moisture conditions. Farmers are also rushing to sell their cattle early, before fall ends, to prevent starvation and save money. They're also bringing in Brahman cattle, an Indian breed with high heat tolerance. Farmers are also investing in infrastructure that can withstand disasters. Following Nebraska's 2019 floods, many farmers are now building flood barriers to protect their homes, fields, gardens, and silos. In hurricane-prone areas, some farmers use windbreaks or plant crops in ways that reduce wind damage. During tough times, turning surplus crops into resources is a crucial lifeline for farmers to mitigate losses. For example, surplus milk was made into cheese, butter, and shelf-stable milk, extending shelf life and easing transport and sales. Excess fruits and vegetables were processed into juices and sauces, while some were donated to food banks. In Montana, farmers mixed surplus potatoes with rice and compost to feed livestock, ensuring future herds benefit from this hardship. In Texas, damaged crops are sent to anaerobic digestion plants. There, they're converted into methane gas to generate electricity. Florida farmers turned damaged potatoes into animal feed and organic fertilizer. California farmers hit by wildfires use surplus milk to make high-quality compost, rebuilding soil fertility. While disaster preparedness has improved, damage is still frequent and severe when nature strikes with full force. When disasters hit, U.S. farmers first assess the damage and begin recovery efforts. In 2023, Texas farmers faced over $4.8 billion in losses, mainly due to drought. Florida's agriculture suffered more than $1.2 billion in damages from Hurricane Idalia. In 2023, about 90% of U.S. acreage was affected by natural disasters. After such events, farmers often rely on government aid and disaster relief to rebuild, but recovery is often slow and incomplete. Depending on the season and damage severity, farmers may attempt to replant crops after a disaster. Despite the destruction, American farmers always look to the future. Fields are replanted, farms are rebuilt, and optimism is restored. Besides natural disasters, animal invasions also pose a major threat to U.S. agriculture, causing millions in losses to this $236 billion industry. Let's take a closer look at some of the most notorious culprits that American farmers battle. First, we have coyotes, a predator that strikes fear into food producers. In 2020 alone, coyotes were responsible for 60% of all livestock losses, costing farmers over $21 million. Their preferred prey is young lambs, but coyotes also attack calves, dogs, and even livestock near farms. Then there are feral hogs, the most destructive invasive species in U.S. farming, ranging from Texas to California and even the Midwest. Feral hogs are responsible for $1.5 billion in annual damages to agriculture. They root up fields, devour crops, and wreck irrigation systems. A single hog can ravage acres of land foraging, leaving farms looking like war zones. Their populations are especially high in states like Texas, Florida, and Georgia. So how do farmers combat these four-legged threats? For starters, farmers rely heavily on guard animals like dogs or donkeys that instinctively protect livestock from hogs. In rural areas, there are hog patrol and trapping programs, as hogs are nocturnal and often raid farms at night. But by far the most debated tactic is hog hunting, which remains legal in many states. Finally, fighting birds is like going to war. In Texas, where birds number in the millions, farmers rely on hunting as their main defense. Helicopter hunts, where hunters shoot birds from above, are common and necessary for large-scale farmers. Others use traps to capture entire bird families, known as coveys, at once. For a more aggressive approach, some farmers use dogs trained specifically to hunt birds. These dogs can track, flush, and even hold a bird in place until the hunter arrives to kill it. This method is especially effective in dense forests where visibility is limited and birds are hard to spot. Advanced methods like bird-specific contraceptives are being researched to control populations without mass culling. But since birds breed rapidly, it seems like a losing battle.